What is going on, everybody? Jimmo back again with another little paint number coming up. But first I wanted to give you guys a look at this mixing process because it's something I don't talk an awful lot about. It's something that isn't overly interesting to me, but I figure there's probably some people out there that would like to have a little bit of a look at this process. So we're using the RM Onyx system, and that's what we're pouring there, our formula. So all of our toners are there on the right, so our mixing bank has all of the different colors and metallics and pearls needed to make various formulas. So we have a terminal mounted on the wall, so that interfaces with the scale, and we can look up all of our color information, our formulas, and once we find the appropriate formula based on various color matching techniques that I'm not going to get into now, but I've talked about in other videos, we come up with our formula and it tells us exactly how much to pour, and if you over pour, it will actually make those calculations for you and come up with new amounts so that nothing's getting wasted. So that's the quick rundown of the mixing setup here. So let's get on to the actual paint job here. Okay, so what we're going to be doing today is some work on this Jeep here, and we're not going to be working on the exterior color. We've actually done that already. We did paint the tailgate on this, but now we're going to be looking at the accessory color, which is on the bumpers. So that's actually PS2, which is a pretty popular Chrysler code across all kinds of different makes, and we're going to be using the Tecna base coat gun on this one again as well. So 16 pounds in the inlet is all that's needed to operate this guy, so we'll run a quick tack rag over it. So when it comes to color matching with PS2, now it doesn't really matter that much here because you can only really look at either the back or the front at the same time. They're going to be so far away that you could have a color pretty far off from one another and nobody's really going to notice. But when it comes to blending it out, they did make some changes. I remember PS2 used to be a very consistent color, and this might only be my perspective of it because I may have just seen a certain type of vehicle in certain color coming in constantly. But I remember around, I think it was around 2011, 2012, somewhere around there, they made a change, and all of the new vehicles were all over the map. So instead of having my go-to formula for PS2, which was usually standard and was like dead on, I started using all kinds of different variants. So that's just something you encounter with paint across different manufacturers. Some are a little bit more consistent than others, but you just never know what to expect. Now, I'm not going to show you every coat of base going on this one. We're using Onyx solvent-based paint on this rather than the waterborne, which we've used both of in the past, but more recently most videos tend to be waterborne. We're going to use the RM Production Clear DC21NB. So we talked a little bit about production and glamour clears or all-around clears and the difference. So the main difference is usually you lose a little bit of sprayability, you have less time for your clear to be applied. It doesn't flow out quite as nice as the glamour clears do, but the huge advantage here is it's going to dry. It's going to skin over in about 20 minutes, so I can basically put this paint or put the clear on, wait 20 minutes, then unmask it, drive it out. I don't have to wait for baking and all of that stuff. So you need to be aware of certain things. I always recommend you read the tech sheets on everything, but this product here is pretty important that you do because it tells you right on there about baking recommendations. So if you bake this clear too hot, it's going to die back on you severely and go flat. So people will be wondering why their clear coat went flat and they think there's something wrong with it, but that's the way it's designed. It's an ambient clear, so baking is discouraged with this particular clear. It's meant for what it's meant for, which is getting cars in and out of the booth without having to bake them. Now I'm using my trusted Iwata WS400 for the clear on this job. And one important consideration for clear coats in general, but more specifically when working with production clears because of how much faster they can dry, is you want to make sure you have some sort of a plan for how you're spraying whatever piece you're spraying. And it depends on what that piece is. This one's relatively easy. It's not a complex piece of geometry, so it's you start at the top and you end at the bottom. You want to avoid having to touch up anything at the top after you've sprayed it. So what the challenges are is, especially in a color like this, you might be painting it and everything looks fine from your perspective, but then once you change your angle and look horizontally or vertically in a different direction, you'll see that maybe the clear hasn't flown out quite as well as you thought it did, and you might have to go back and touch that spot up after. So you want to try and avoid doing that because the clear may not melt in the way that you think it might. So You want everything. You want to avoid going back and retouching anything, which will typically result in polishing if your clear is drying too quickly. But there's that balance depending on what you're working on and what your expectations are and how you're going to approach each job. So that's going to be it for this one. The nice, quick, easy job for a change, no blending required, makes life a lot simpler. But yeah, leave me your comments below and subscribe if you're new to the channel. Thanks for watching, and we will see you next time.